You probably have noticed in Australia we don't really have any alternatives to Labor and the Coalition. Every election cycle, it's either the Coalition or Labor, repeated. The so called two party system has been in force for almost 80 years. But as you've probably noticed, all that began to change from 2019, where we've seen a consistent fall in the major party primary votes and a rise in independence. So, in today's video, we're going to explore why Australia suddenly has so many independents, why we don't have more minor parties, and what this could mean for the upcoming election. Throughout Australia's history since Federation, we've generally observed a consolidation of political groupings. In the early days, we had the Protectionist Party and the Free Trade Party, and throughout the decades, eventually, three parties would develop to become a mainstay in politics. The first and oldest being the Australian Labor Party, later the Country Party, renamed to the Nationals, and lastly the Liberal Party, who govern in coalition with the Nats. As these parties rose to prominence, so too did their entrenchment in the political system. Although despite their dominance, there were times where government had to operate in minority or face conflict within Australia's upper house. Unlike countries like the US, the UK, we don't use a first-past-the-post system, but instead utilise ranked preferential voting, which at times allows independents and minor parties to win by collecting second and third preferences, even if they didn't get most of the first preference vote. For most of Australia's history, most of the independents and minor parties were concentrated in the Senate, which at the time of Federation was designed as a house of review. Fulfilling this goal, the Senate used the proportional ranked choice voting method, which essentially gives smaller parties and independents a better chance of winning seats. In addition, Senate elections are not confined to an electorate like House members, but instead out of a state's 6 candidates or 2 territory candidates, which can be beneficial for minor parties. As for why we have so many independents in Australia, it's been argued by the Greens, Teals and minor candidates that the major parties don't represent the interests of the people. Issues like corruption, party infighting and leadership spills, among other things, have led to eroded trust in major parties. In seats that were previously considered safe, such as Franklin and Werribee, we've seen or are currently seeing a significant shift with the minor candidates, claiming the major parties have been too focused on winning elections, pork-barrelling marginal seats rather than pushing forward policies that benefit the rest of Australia. For other reasons, the rise of teal independence has been driven by the need to take more action on the climate agenda and enforce political integrity. Unlike party-backed MPs who must follow party lines, independents can focus more on electorate needs and directly engage with community stakeholders. However, the major parties would argue the rise of independence damages national unity and stability that is observed with majority governments, and believes governing minority with an enlarged crossbench would be unworkable and paralyse politics in Australia. The Coalition and Labor have also argued independents bring little to their electorates in regards to funding, but independents like Allegra Spender and Andrew Wilkie would disagree. And especially when in a position of a hung parliament, they'd argue that they were able to further the interests of the electorate, which would otherwise be ignored by the major parties. Apart from the rise of independents, you're probably noticing something or lack of thereof of something, and that is the emergence of minor parties. Historically, we've seen limited success with minor parties, whether that be Democratic Labor in the 60s, the Australian Democrats and One Nation in the 90s, or the Greens as of contemporary times. But apart from the Greens, we've never really seen a centrist or right-wing minor party at a sizable scale. This is due to a few reasons. First, minor parties must register with the AEC, meet membership thresholds and secure campaign funding, while independents don't face these hurdles. These parties also face the risk of infighting and collapse seen by big parties. Many minor parties dissolve or lack electoral competitive policies within 1 to 2 electoral cycles, meaning that they're really not able to establish themselves. While minor parties benefit a lot in the Senate elections, in single member House of Representative seats, minor parties often struggle compared to high profile independents and the major parties. There's also the argument from the big parties, and that it's these minor and fringe parties simply don't have any innovative policies that differentiate with the major parties, which does not give much reason for people to vote for these parties. The last and likely biggest impact on minor parties is the lack of broad appeal to the masses, often due to a lack of media exposure and access to information. Although the rise of digital and independent media allows non-traditional candidates to bypass mainstream party dominance, the consolidated media market still has a heavy influence on what parties and political stories are covered. At this election and future ones to come, we're likely to see independents and minor parties play a larger role in our democracy. And this year will likely be one of the biggest elections of our time, determining the direction of politics will play in our country. Right now, we're seeing Labor losing in the primary votes, while the coalition is struggling to surpass Labor and win a majority government, which could see the minor parties playing a larger role. We're yet to see if Labor or the coalition will be forming minority government, but one thing is for certain, and that is that Teals, the Greens, and other independents are likely to play a massive role in our parliament this year. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed our content, consider subscribing and ringing the bell so you can keep in the loop regarding the important news stories from the world and around Australia. We're also pleased to announce the release of our 5th edition of the Snapshots newsletter. This edition highlights significant global headlines, as well as major news from Australia and beyond. You can access it for free in the link down below. Lastly, I'd like to thank our regular supporters and the team for making this video possible. Your support is crucial, and if you'd like to help, consider buying us a coffee, our merchandise, or purchasing a premium membership. Your support would be crucial for the expansion of our platform, and any contributions will be invested into our content, our equipment, and covering other operational expenses. Once again, I'm Heath Clark, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.